Hi, everyone. Welcome to Disney Television Animation's presentation of Mickey Mouse, a caricature on heritage. We have some special guests with us here today. We have Asia Ellington and Cameron Thompson and Juan Garrido, who is also joining our presentation. He's unable to join us, but we have a special pre-recorded little presentation we're going to show you. And I have, let me introduce you to our special guests we have today. So Asia Ellington is a character designer who got her start at Disney TV Animation as a summer intern in 2019. Since then, she's been designing on The Wonderful World of Mickey Mouse, the Chibi Tiny Tales series, a medley of shorts with the multi-platform team, and other exciting projects in development. Cameron Thompson is a Los Angeles-based artist that has worked in the animation industry on a wide array of shows and over the past few years. He currently is an art director on The Wonderful World of Mickey Mouse, where he relishes a variety of challenges and stylistic change-ups that the show provides. He spent a year studying in Florence, Italy, where he attended the renowned Accademia di Belle Arte and ate a significant amount of gelato. Hold on a second.
You do it.
There we go. Sorry. Margarito, like I said, could not join us today. He's worked as a background painter for 11 years, and the past 5 being at Disney Television Animation. He's painted for Rick and Morty, Wander Over Yonder, Monsters at Work, The Ghosts of Molly McGee, and Mickey Shorts. He is now art directing on The Wonderful World of Mickey Mouse. He wants to paint large abstract oils while wearing a funny hat someday. So, we have a little pre-recorded presentation for you, and then we're gonna do a little Q&A afterwards. So we can get started with the presentation. Enjoy.
Yay. Welcome everybody to our little talk here, talking about the style evolution of The Wonderful World of Mickey Mouse. And yeah, welcome to our caricature on heritage. And so I'm going to start us off here with Tinker Goof and talk a little bit more about the style evolution of Mickey and what goes into making our special poses for the show, as well as incorporating all of our heritage characters and properties. So here's our timeline of Mickey, and over the last 93 years we've really seen him evolve from the 20s and 30s, from his squash and stretch rubber hose style, developing a little bit more volume and shape over the years, proportions and different styles being tested and experimented with, some more illustrated takes, some more abstract takes, evolved over time. We kind of see his form and style and proportions get kind of, settled in and reeled in over the years. Even through the 80s and 90s, we see, a lot stays the same and then a lot changes until we get to our current Mickey with The Wonderful World of Mickey Mouse. And so looking at our timeline of Mickeys here, there's never a short of special poses over the years. And we can really see a huge range of Mickey. And the fun part of this character who's lived this whole long span of multiple decades is that he's been everywhere, he's done everything, and he's been in all sorts of weird situations with his friends. And we get, we already have this whole inventory of styles and emotions and all that fun stuff. But with the Mickey shorts in particular, Paul Rudish, our creator and executive producer, really loved the 1920s to 30s style of Mickey. And so you can kind of see a lot of that if you go back and look through the 1920s shorts, how much of it we really kind of bring forward to modern day. And so a question that Paul gets a lot is, was it ever a challenge making a modern cartoon for Mickey Mouse? And he's always stood by, not really, because we're all inherently modern people with modern sensibilities and stuff. But, it's all this groundwork has already been laid through the 20s and 30s and 40s and so on. And so yeah, it's just, the same heartbeat throughout the years, and everyone just sort of passing the pencil along. I love going back and rewatching through all the 1920 shorts today because it surprises me. Like, I love this era of Mickey, but rewatching and going back and seeing how crazy these shorts are, it's really not that different from what we're doing today. Um, Moving forward, these are just a compilation of some special poses throughout the seasons of the Mickey shorts that I've compiled and put together just to kind of keep reminding myself where the show has been and what's been done. And it kind of helps me get myself in that mindset of loose and fun and, always big range of emotions and always trying to push our poses. And, every special pose really needs to have a purpose of why are we making this pose? What story or what joke is it trying to land? And so part of when I first started on the show is finding like how hard and deceptively hard the show style is of balancing between that this traditional 30s uh, form and volume and trying to capture that and match that with contemporary line work and stylization. Um, and so it all still kind of boils down to the same things. So we have our line of action here. It's kind of, how Mickey is posing and kind of keeping us with that energy. And how much in form, even though it is a graphic style, the new shorts, it's still so much based in form and volume. And so working through these poses, although it does look fun and graphic and all that stuff, you also still have to remember the basic fundamentals and everything. And so the importance of line of action and having a super strong silhouette are just some really key features of these shorts. So is our tapered and weighted lines too, that really kind of help bring that volume back into the graphicness of the show style. And you can even see some little like sketchy lines and stuff. Those are all just really fun, little quirks that designers have liked to add to the models to, kind of bring it back to the, pencil drawings and all that stuff. And also, of course, the good old squash and stretch. And so pushing the characters and seeing how much fun we can have with them, breaking rules and all that fun stuff. And so, next segment, I'm just going to walk you through how I might do a special pose on the show. And so, this one's from our episode Hard to Swallow. And Mickey is trying to give Pluto a flea pill and is having trouble. So he's going over to Minnie's house. And so she tries to demonstrate, oh, look how easy it is to give Fifi a flea pill. Not so much. But so here is the board that I've been given. It's pretty much nailed down, really. There's not much that I really have to do because, our storyboard team and our directors, depending, some really can draw on model right off the bat. And so next I look at the board and now I go and grab my reference. And so I always love to go back and look at original model sheets for reference, for just for fun, but emotion and expression and form and stuff. But we also have an established Fifi reference since she's been in the show before. And so I pull those things, including a prop reference, because on the show, character designers also work on not only special poses and turns, but also props and effects as well. So I can't forget to fit in the telephone as well. After that, I pull up my Photoshop file and I lay down my board, dropped opacity so that I can still see what the base of my board is and what, just to kind of help me out. Do my rough sketch right over it, just some small tweaks here and there, avoiding tangents, kind of making the pose a little bit more clear. Yeah, and just working out all of the technical bits of it. So then I have my, my rough drawing, not totally perfect yet, but we're going to send it off to notes. And so here's the notes part where I'll get notes back from either the director of the short or Paul. Um, Thankfully, this one I didn't have too many notes, but important notes even so. And so just little things here and there, like thickening the arm a little bit so it reads a bit better, um, having a little bit more adjustments to Fifi's mouth. And so I'll take those notes into consideration when I do my final cleanup, which isn't too different from the rough, just sort of solidifying all those lines again with the clean tapered line that I talked about earlier. Next, I'll go in and put in all of my blacks, black fill. Usually, it's kind of a preference whether to add it or not, but because, it's sort of an iconic part of Mickey and Minnie of having, the silhouetted ears and tails and stuff. It's always good to just throw it in one as like a courtesy before it gets passed along to color. And also it just kind of helps me check my forms and silhouettes to make sure everything is reading well and no little tangents or anything weird happen between the cleanup and color. And there's the final pose. And so another part of working on the show and when I first started on the show in learning the show style and everything, I had a lot of difficulties trying to adapt to it, not so much for the style, but because of that foundation and form, like I mentioned earlier. And so seeing that kind of weakness, I really wanted to go in and really, really study. And one thing that helped me bring back some of that good form and volumetric qualities to the characters is studying model sheets. And so I really went in and studied, and I still do, study tons and tons of model sheets of Mickey, Donald, lots of characters, even other, old Disney model sheets, through different movies and decades and all that kind of stuff. Even non-Disney model sheets, like a lot of Looney Tunes, a lot of, all that kind of fun stuff. A lot of Tex Avery I like to study. And so it just kind of helps me if I really, I'm rusty one morning, I need a quick warm up. I'll just go and do a quick little model sheet study, and it kind of helps me warm up for the day. And also, of course, I keep a lot of other inspiration around me as well. I love, a lot of like legendary Disney animators and artists like Mary Blair, um, Tom Oreb, Ward Kimball, Fred Moore, um, you know, Eric Goldberg, all of those people. Kind of keeping those around me also kind of helps, just not to just solely be stuck on Mickey brain, but also keeping other inspirations around me, Disney and not Disney. And it's also my own personal art. I try and inject whatever my own sensibilities that I've gathered over the years, and same with any artist on the show. We all kind of bring a little bit of our own stylistic takes and stuff, and kind of helps us make good poses and stuff. So moving into kind of more of our heritage and tackling, the legacy of using caricature and stuff to make funny shorts. It's not a new concept. So if you look at a lot of the older shorts, so Mickey's Polo Team, Mother Goose Goes to Hollywood, Autograph Hound, all of these shorts include really zany, weird caricatures of a lot of big Hollywood actors and actresses at the time. And then even Flowers and Trees, Silly Symphonies, Orphans Benefit has also established a lot of reoccurring characters within the Mickey Mouse world that we even still pull from time to time today. And so while we don't necessarily use, contemporary celebrities in our cartoons, we almost look at like our Three Little Pigs, our Cinderella's, Snow Whites, Flowers and Trees as kind of like our celebrities in which we put into our cartoons to make fun little gags or little cameos and stuff. And so, yeah, it's just sampling of a bunch of different characters that, have made appearances now and then and have become staples, or just every once in a while little peaks. And yeah, the point of introducing these little cameos isn't just the nostalgia bait of, oh, yuck, yuck, we could fit this many people in one short, but more so it's a lot more organic than that, and more natural of what suits the story and if it makes sense or if it's a funny joke to tell and it's not totally taking you out of the short. Um, and so, as you can see with Cinderella and Prince Charming, here we have our original reference and then our in show final design. And so we're pretty much sticking with as close to on model as we can and should, but giving that little like artistic flair of the tapered lines, um, really bold silhouettes, line work, all that fun stuff. Um, just kind of giving it just one little clean polish over. And so here's an example of kind of one a little heritage tie-in I got to do on our episode An Ordinary Date. All right, so here's an example of a little, cameo I got to work on in our episode An Ordinary Date, where Mickey and Minnie are trying to top one another, and go all out on this really big, crazy date. And so one of these scenes, this panel we got was a line of kick line dancers with Mickey and Minnie heads. And so in our design handout, we were talking about, well, what are these heads going to look like? Are they going to look just like model pack Mickey and Minnie? But we eventually settled on taking inspiration from the parks and the evolution of Mickey and Minnie's park heads throughout the years and kind of, infusing that into the gag. So here I kind of took a little bit of the 50s and 30s, or sorry, 50s and 60s Mickey and Mickey heads and put them into our show to make this fun little gag. Another example could be The Big Good Wolf, where I had to draw an old folks home, and it needed to be populated with some elderly people, elderly characters, and it was suggested, well, we have a bunch of old cartoons, let's see who we can put in. So we have, yeah, a lot of 30s and 20s characters, and just kind of helped elevate the joke and kind of bring them and give them a new little life and little cameo. And so throughout all the 93 years and all throughout the, I don't know, maybe almost a decade of Mickey shorts, they've had such a cool carousel of different artists and designers that have come through the show. And just like the first timeline I showed you, the same thing can be seen and said through our Mickey over the past however many seasons, lots of seasons, with every director. Cool thing of being on the show and looking at it all and in all lined up is it's all the same Mickey, it's all the same model pack, but each director and each storyboard artist and each designer kind of puts their own little tiny spin and adjustments on them. Not that they're trying to change Mickey purposefully, but everyone's style is like different and unique, and the show really is just this really big melting pot, and it's just really cool seeing the little teeny tiny proportions, little signature styles that everyone kind of does, to kind of put their own little mini stamp on the Mickey timeline. And so after all of that, it can be pretty daunting to look at the show and work on the show and be like, well, how are we supposed to, I don't know, it's hard to not be precious about all these characters because you love them so much and you want to do them justice. But I think what makes the show really great overall is that it really, everybody on the show has huge love for Disney and Disney history, and want nothing more to pay homage to everything that's come before it. But a great trait that the team has is to have fun and not to be precious and not to take ourselves too seriously. So this was a fun pose I got to draw of Ursula in a fabulous disco roller skating outfit, and it's just, yeah, it's hard to not overthink those things all the time and kind of get in your head, but at the same time, at the end of the day, we're all just trying to make a fun cartoon and just trying to have fun with it all. And yeah, it's just wacky and fun. So before I toss you to our art directors, I just want to leave you off with one thing that I like to kind of remind myself while I work with these characters is just a fun page from our style guide of Goofy Hands. Goofy's one of my favorite characters to draw on the show because he's always so, crazy, and he really has a lot of great poses. But for me, to try not to overthink, and sometimes I'll run into really stiff drawings and stuff, but I always like to go back to this Goofy model sheet because there's just so much energy here. And think floppy and sloppy, I think, is a really good motto to kind of keep everything fresh and fun, and see where we came from to kind of help us inform where we go. So yeah, thanks for listening, and I'm gonna toss it over to Cameron, our first art director, and he's gonna tell you a little bit about Mickey's BG layout.
All right. Well, thanks, Asia. Hello, Lightbox. My name is Cameron Thompson, and I'm an art director on the wonderful world of Mickey Mouse. And I'm here to talk about some of the unique aspects of the show and give you a small glimpse behind the curtain of how we design backgrounds for it. In this latest rendition of Mickey, created by Paul Rudesh, it provides a rare opportunity as an art director. In this show, we have the liberty to reference the vast Disney library, not only its cherished characters, but its wide array of locations as well. Share up here. All right. So we've got a unique and rich library to mine. So let's dive in. What better place to start than way back in the 1933, the big silly symphony hit, Three Little Pigs. In the wonderful world of Mickey, we revisit the pigs and their homes, but now Mickey must contend with the big bad wolf to save the day. In another episode, Starlit Nights, we revisit the Beast Ballroom, where the gang is looking to find a new roller rink. Of course, once found out, the Beast promptly kicks them out with a big roar. Some other locations who can't miss Disneyland. It's the subconscious home of Mickey Mouse. And in the Mickey Mouse shorts, as well as the world of Mickey Mouse, Disneyland can represent the ultimate playground, whether it be dancing in the Tiki Room, climbing the Adventureland treehouse, or taking a cruise down the Jungle River. So say we need a place for an inventor character like Professor Von Drake to hang out. What better place than Tomorrowland, mixed with a dash of Walt's 1964 World's Fair, and even a nod to a ride from yesteryear, The Adventures Through Inner Space. Through the course of the show, we've had the chance to explore many iconic locations, both past and present, found in Disneyland. In the episode Adorable Couple and Potato Land, we created our own version of Main Street, USA. And we had Mickey and Minnie frolicking down the main street. They also build a potato rendition of Disneyland in Goofy's Potato Land. So venturing past Main Street, our characters have also traversed through the wonders and perils of Big Thunder Mountain, as well as the Haunted Mansion, and even the House of Tomorrow. All right, so one of the unique liberties afforded the show, and my personal favorite, is the ability to break into other styles on a episode to episode basis. While not necessarily the easiest task, bringing those styles to the screen once again, and the ability to pay homage to some of the amazing Disney heritage artists such as Mary Blair, has been a blast and a hallmark to the show. Like in the episode O Sole Mini, we reference her whimsical style in the architecture. So harkening back to It's a Small World. You know, we've got the kind of extravagant patterning as well in episode Clogged, I believe this one was. All right. So the style, when we're not referencing Disney heritage styles, we also use our homegrown Mickey style. So let's see, for example, we have the sword in the stone here, and Mickey is going to go up and draw the sword from the stone. We would first start with our reference image here, and then sort of break it down into just simple line work, kind of getting that basic shape down and finding that silhouette, kind of giving it a real spontaneous sort of gestural line. And then from there, we'd block it out in grayscale and kind of start giving a sense of lighting, sort of working a little more volumetrically, like how does the light lay on this stone? Does it even look like a stone? You know. And then on top of that, we'll go in with our pencil brush, kind of a special brush we've formulated just for this show to kind of give it a sort of antique or Disney hand-drawn look. And then once we've laid down that line, we'll go in and kind of brush up on the grayscale, add that extra lighting, and give it, you know, some epic lighting since we've got Excalibur here. And boom, get those highlights on and we're done. So anyway, now to explore how we bring the designs even more to life, infusing them with color, let's go over to Juan.
That was great, Cameron.
Thanks.
Great job. All right, so let me go ahead and share my screen now. So Mickey style and visual themes. There are so many styles that, as Cameron showed, that's one of the things that makes working on the show both challenging and difficult for any department, really, is the numerous styles that we're jumping in and out of. Over time, though, for the sake of simplicity and for efficiency, we've kind of narrowed it down to two basic styles that we kind of like bounce back and forth with, and sometimes we do a watercolor style as well, but I decided to show these two for this example here. So we have line-driven and a shape-driven style. So at the top here, we have this interior of a kitchen, and if you see a lot of the shapes, or pretty much all the shapes, don't have an exterior line. So they were probably drawn that way by layout, but they were removed in the painting process. So the table edge where it meets the floor, that has no line, that's just a flat shape. And so any textures and strokes are put onto and inside that shape, but there's nothing encapsulating it, much like, you know, unlike the difference of, you know, the one down below it that has all the exterior lines still existing on the frames, and you know, the side of the wall, anywhere you look, those were not erased. At times we'll also color line those to sort of push back their dominance a little bit, but that's the main difference between those two. And can't forget to mention, when using lines, there's usually an offset quality, and I'll get into that with this next example, which would be Walt Paraguay. So in speaking to Paul Rudish about what, you know, he thought we should mention in this talk, he kind of gave us a little bit of insight, and he said, you know, make it fun, loose, and playful is what he kind of told his initial artists. Those are really the only prerequisites, to just have a good time, keep it 2D. You wanted to harken back to that old school hand-drawn 2D look. So artists like Walt Paraguay were certainly a big influence in the beginning. These are 101 Dalmatian BGs. And the thing to note about these is just the difference in or the separation in fill and line. There's always a little bit of a bump or a space, where things don't quite line up, and that adds a little bit of that charm that we're looking for in the Mickey style. So here's an example of where that might, play out in some of our previous episodes. So split decision is one of them that kind of has that, and it's seen in others as well, but this is just a cool one that I chose. Just loved how the shapes, they really hold together. It's super graphic. And certainly things don't line up. Things are nudged outside or inside of the line. Let's see, what do we have next? So Mary Blair, Cameron, you touched on this as well, and mentioned the beautiful patterning that she has. There's this, it's a tapestry-like arrangement of shapes, more of a reinforcing sort of shallow depth of field. It's more about tapestry pattern and just making interesting shapes with cool pattern, or sorry, cool texture within it, as opposed to something that's extremely, tied to linear perspective and other traditional forms of like representing lighting. This is more about illustration, more symbolism than literalness. So here's some examples from Also Mini and Claude, both using Mary Blair as an example or as an inspiration. Always loved it, just paying attention to the subtle separation of shapes. Everything usually gets divided into 50-50 for some reason with her. At least that's the way it's being interpreted. So if you look at every triangle, every square has something kind of going down the middle. I don't know, that always fascinated me. Next we have Miroslav Sasek. Just love the wonkiness of this guy's stuff. Really emphasis on flat, also pattern making, and similar to Mary Blair, but this is also being pushed. Things are sort of obtuse and kind of, definitely asymmetrical. If anything, that's the difference. I think there's the asymmetry. Things get kind of like slanted or warped in some way. So again, very elegantly done line work with just simple fills right behind the line. Amor Motore, that was one that we also referenced Miroslav Sasek on, at least I did when I painted this one. And just love the cars. It's a great job by Justin, who art directed and also did that layout. All right, so as a showcase episode from last season, one of my favorites, or the favorite one, I think, was Cheese Wranglers. So this is a wonderful night scene around the campfire. Definitely channeled my nights at around the campfire at Yosemite for some reason, even though it wasn't the desert or the plains. I always try to pull from life when I paint something, so that was in the back of my head, just being around the campfire with friends. And this was actually Todd's background today, so that was fun to see. Again, yeah, Buster Scruggs just thought of that writing in. Big, bold shapes. Again, this goes back to that use of line quality, thick to thin, the off register being used here and there ever so slightly, things just sort of peeking through. Those imperfections really aid in getting that feeling of confidence and looseness, but as Cameron said, is certainly manufactured. Lots of Control Z, edit, undo over and over again until it looks just right. So here's an example of like, what I might have gotten from one of the layout artists to paint. So the before and after of something is always, there's always something that I'm always curious about when it comes to process with people. So I thought I'd provide this just because I don't know, it's like peeking behind the curtain. One of our long pans of that episode. It was used in various shots. So I also had to keep that in mind, is just dropping an overlay of where the boards are and what they're doing. And yeah, just trying to be conscious of what the action is, because if I do my job right of painting a background, it's to set a stage for the characters. So one can never forget that. All right, so just a quick little run through, just because again, this is sort of peeking behind the curtain stuff. Here's some of the textures that we usually will play with and modify, but this is the starting point. You know, if you're familiar with watercolor painting, you're dropping salt on top of wet paint.
Juan, do you mind zooming on that just a little bit more?
Oh, sure, yeah. Sorry about that.
There you go. Perfect.
We can just go layers. All right.
Yeah, there you go.
And yeah, so this is kind of like our little tool bin of fun stuff to use and to drop in. So this one here, this is, oh my God, this is the bread and butter of Mickey. You know, who would have thought just one texture alone would go so far, but we'll use bits and pieces, you know, just cutting out sections and then kind of stamping out the rest or masking out whatever you don't think you need. So this is, I usually pull from this file. So to give you an idea, I basically mocked up a background here. All right, actually here, I'll show you what I'm gonna be attempting to do. So in a background like this, like in Captain Donald, we have like these really fanciful and like lyrical clouds. They're usually just a lasso shape you can do, but there are imperfections, right? So I'm gonna kind of clue you in on that stuff. Because if you lay something down and it's just a lasso tool, it's just really too hard-edged. It might need some imperfections, you know, the bottom of the cloud here is gonna get a treatment soon. So first thing I would do is probably erase out the splashy or brushy texture like this. After that, I would probably add some texture to that. And then I keep building on top of that. I would throw in some paper texture as well there, but before I get carried away, I would probably jump to the background here and begin to do something as well. So I'm not working in isolation. And that's where I employ these watercolor textures I was mentioning from down there. And see the edge there. So if I go too far, you can see the seams. But let me return to what it was. Just adding variation, you know, so I'm working within analogous color schemes, blue, greens, purples, things of that nature. And then at the end, just to kind of like wrap things up, maybe brighten it up just a tad. So in the event that there was actually I won't get ahead of myself. So see at the very end, I also make sure to kind of like break up the edges. Something that, and this is my time to give credit to, Jenny Baker and Wendy Park, those two lovely ladies influenced me and taught me a lot when I came onto the show initially in season 4 of Mickey Shorts, and they showed me all this stuff to keep an eye on. So, you know, props to them. Because, you know, it's in the details. Like if something doesn't get that love on that level, then it just won't feel right. If this was to have line art, we sometimes clip onto line art some texture as well. So that's what I tried representing here. And if it was a watercolory look, you know, make sure to add some color variety on top. And last but not least, some paper texture, because what's Mickey without paper texture? And yeah, that is it for me.
Huzzah!
Hi, that was wonderful. Very good. Well, thank you, everyone. I realized I didn't introduce myself. Leaf Blower did, but my name is Kyle. I'm an artist manager here at Disney Television Animation. I'm going to help moderate. We have a few questions that came in during your presentation. Let me get to them. So Aaron asked, when exploring old and new locations for inspiration, what are some of the main things to keep your eye out for? Since every place has their own little quirk to them that you want. In your opinion, what is the best way to bring those characteristics out?
Yeah, I'll grab that one. So yeah, every location, you know, has its own little caricature or character. And what we'll do is look at the architecture, you know, say if it's a little Italian town or something, you know, what kind of architecture would you find in that place? What sort of stories have taken place there? There's probably, a beautiful old fountain somewhere that you might want to throw in there. Basically, just there's a lot of cultural nods, based on where it's taking place. And we sort of boil those down and kind of do our own caricature of that to sort of amplify those feelings or those sort of pictorial images that are striking. So.
Very cool. Another question we got early on. Do certain Mickeys from certain decades have specific principles of animation that they use more? For example, would they use squash and stretch more often in the 20s than they did in the 50s? And additionally, where's a great place to find quality model sheets?
Yeah, so yeah, when I rewatch old Mickey shorts, there's definitely different techniques of animation that gets employed through different decades, which kind of encompasses all of animation in those time periods, respectfully. So like when you look at like 20s Mickey is definitely going to have more of that rubber hose stretching, kind of like that, definitely breaking rules, like stretching his arm out too long or using it as like, I don't know, just swirling around the place, or even like in Betty Boop cartoons or Tex Avery, all that kind of stuff. There's like, a lot of logic breaking animation happening, as opposed to like if you were to look at 50s or 60s Mickey, or even going into 80s Mickey, he's getting a lot more grounded physically in his form. He's not like stretching as far. There's still fun little in between expressions and stuff, but it's definitely a lot more anatomical and a lot more like set into his style. And then like if you look at like 30s and 40s, he's a lot more chubbier, he's a little bit more bouncier. But yeah, there's definitely different qualities throughout. So yeah, it's always cool if you just like watch one per era, you kind of see all those little subtle nuances and stuff. For model sheets, I just look on Google Images. There's a lot of just like not good quality ones, but if you dig around, you'll usually find a good upload of it. Usually if I'm looking for a specific one, I'll just type in like the name of an episode model sheet or name of movie concept art, all that stuff. Not model sheet related, but I also love going to animationscreencaps.com, and those have a lot of wild and really weird, but they show a lot of like the smears and in-betweens, lots of really good resources for animating and special poses.
Very cool. Yeah, and then I was going to add too, like just over time, the limitations sort of added to the squash and stretch, and animators in the 20s to the 50s, they learned, they were growing, and they got better and better at their craft, so they ended up getting stronger and stronger. So
yep.
Another question, it's a fun one. Do you always have the possibility to listen to the original music and songs of the Mickey shorts during the design and drawing development? I mean, to get inspired by, because usually it is recorded as a last step.
Sometimes, like especially when I was new to the show, I would search through all of the folders and just look at everybody's art, just because I'm just completely enamored by just everything happening and just love to see the entire process. So usually there might be like a scratch track that was recorded at first for the animatic, and they'll use just like a generic song, like just any sort of song or a soundtrack in place of as inspiration. And then our composer will come in and then have a rough take at what he's thinking. So there might be little nuggets here and there along the way. So we definitely get set up to be inspired for a certain feeling through other pieces of music until the final piece is ready. So yeah, I always just kind of dig through and try and find it to kind of help get the inspiration.
What about you, Cameron?
Oh, well, I think, yeah, basically when we get that scratch track, you know, it might have like a crazy guitar medley on it, and for this chaotic scene. And, you know, maybe it's kind of like a well-known band, maybe it's Kiss or something. So obviously we can't use them, but that'll go on to our composer, and he'll actually even bust out his guitar and do his own riff on that. And so it hits the mark, hits the mood and the feel that we're going for. But it's just not that particular, you know, section of a song that everybody knows.
Very cool. It's a fun one since Mickey has so many different styles. How long does it take you to learn the new styles and techniques? How do you mix your own style with it?
I mean, I guess you're never really done learning a show style. There was, I think, oh, who was it? There was somebody, I think I was watching a making of documentary. I think it was for Emperor's New Groove. And the animator who was animating Yzma was saying, like, you never really, really feel like you know the character you're drawing until you're done drawing them or something like that. Like, he was on his last day of work after hundreds and thousands of drawing Yzma, and that last drawing he was like, okay, now I'm ready, let's do this all over again. I think that's the kind of same feeling with Mickey. You're just always learning and always trying to experiment and push a board however you can, and following the direction of the team. And how do you influence, like, how do you use that and also your own influence and kind of make the final product? It's kind of a big balancing act. So definitely just studying all of the masters and everything that has come before it has helped a lot, but obviously your own inspiration and experiences can also help too. So all of the things.
Yeah, I feel like when you first start a job, sometimes there'll be a test or something, and you kind of you'll look back on that test, you know, after working on the show for a while and be like, oh my gosh, man, I just scraped it under the wire there. But really just working on the show, you know, I find usually takes about 2 episodes in to really get cooking on a new show that you just started. Basically, it's also helpful, just like we had a really good art director that was on before me, Justin Martin, and he really helped get everybody kind of up to scratch with the style and what sort of stylistic rules laid down for the show.
Another question we had come in. Do you have any tips on improving art and staying motivated? I'm learning the human anatomy and want to improve my art in general on paper and digitally.
I don't know. I mean, I think it just goes back to having a strong foundation of skills and stuff. So not only studying like all the fundamentals and basics and stuff, but also creating a space for you to explore how you want to draw and your inspirations and stuff. And so whether it's drawing all the time or absorbing other content that inspire you and make you happy, doing other hobbies and all that kind of stuff, just making sure that, you know, you're listening to yourself and your body and not burning yourself out, but also having a discipline to try things that maybe you're not too skilled at or need improvement on. But yeah, finding a happy balance within that to keep inspired.
Yeah, for figure drawing and how it kind of relates to background design, just getting those natural shapes in nature. There's all kinds of measurements that kind of keep popping up, and so it could be like somebody's, you know, forearm, and it's kind of twisted, and you see the muscles, how they're kind of twisting and rotating. That can kind of be reference for a tree branch in some ways. It like just there's like the movement and flow and figure drawing is very helpful for anything you design, really.
Cool. Another question. There's one question I think we all can answer. How is the audience reaction to the new style, to the new Mickey style you created? Is it loved by a new generation? It's
Yeah.
our Mickey's kind of everywhere.
I know. Yeah, I hope so. I hope he's good. I mean, I love him.
There's the attraction that we
Yeah.
did.
There's Mickey's Runaway Railway, opening soon to Disneyland. Already open in Florida. Yeah, no, I hope he's loved, because I mean, it's so funny because Disney fans can be really either way. Some will always love everything, and then there's like the diehards that are like, no, we don't want any new Mickey. What is this? But like I mentioned before in the presentation, a lot of the inspiration for what really inspired Paul to start the series was the charm and the fun of the old Mickey. And so how do we bring him to a modern age? Well, all that groundwork was already laid out with the humor and funness of the classic Mickey that we originally had. And I think over time, like, we just started to get really, really protective of him because he is this, mascot for a company. And, so how do we kind of like let go a little bit, and how do we explore his character more? And so I think the shorts have just done a really, like, almost an impossible job of bringing this character back to life and having him with flaws or challenges or difficulties, and how do we bring this character back to a modern audience. And so I think they've done a good job.
Yeah, they had to, break the mold, as it were.
Another question. If you could talk to your past self and give yourself some advice that you wish you had today, what would it be?
Draw more. Draw more. Don't stop it. What are you doing? Draw more anatomy, draw more form, like really take the fundamentals seriously. I think especially in high school, when I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and then even going into college, I was like really loathing having to learn all the rules and stuff. But like the classic saying, you can't break the rules until you know them. So and when now, like, being on the show, all those weaknesses and things that you felt like, whatever, that comes up eventually to bite you. So just having the vulnerability to now say, like, hey, you need to spruce that up, is a really good, strong asset to have. So yeah, I don't know, study as much as you can. That's what I would say.
Yeah, it's all about mileage.
Yeah, just flexing those muscles, it's,
yep.
You just got to keep growing and growing. Maybe have time for one or two more. Any tips on perspective in environmental design or environment design?
Sure. Well, definitely get that perspective down. Like in our show, we actually will break perspective a lot, but we know the underlying perspective rules, and we implement those. And because we know them, we can break them successfully. So it's really like, kind of goes back to that mileage thing, and like really knowing that perspective, knowing when something's off, just, looking up at the screen, seeing something, and then, well, what are the ways that you can kind of fudge it, or,
cheat it.
That makes it even more fun or interesting, or jarring, if there's like a scary scene, you might put a tilt on everything. If something's spooky, you might make it wavy, and like, how does a wavy, material go into the distance? You have to know all those things.
Oh, true. Well, I think we're running out of time here, so I wanted to thank you to our panelists for joining us, and thank you for our attendees for joining us here for our presentation. And I wanted to also mention other Lightbox presentations we have at Disney Television Animation. Our next session is Early Viz Dev, Mastering Many Styles with Jose Zelaya, and that's at 2 p.m. Pacific time. So thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy your Lightbox, and see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.